Hi, my name is Lynn Beck. I'm a tax manager for Kirkring Barbario here in Sarasota, Florida, and I specialize in the construction real estate development taxation area. I wanted to give you a little background about myself. I have to admit, I wasn't one of those kids growing up that said, I want to be an accountant, I want to be a tax accountant, and I want to specialize in construction. I started out my professional career as being an executive assistant to the tax director of one of the Big 8 accounting firms. Now I know I'm dating myself, but it was Ernst & Winnie, which later merged with Arthur Young to become Ernst & Young, one of the Big 8, but they still remain part of the Big 4 now. I ended up working full-time during the day, and I got my bachelor's at night from Bryant College in Rhode Island. I passed the CPA exam, and then I transferred onto the professional staff at Ernst & Young, and I remained there for quite a few years. From the early part of my career, I focused on tax. I wasn't really interested in being out of the office at different clients, much like the auditors are. I really kind of wanted a home base, but I did get some experience in audit. We actually needed it to pass our CPA exams back then. But I highly encourage all of you who are thinking about going the public route, take some time in the audit department. Even if you don't think it's what you want to do, you won't know it until you actually do it. So you need to give that a chance. Even though I focus predominantly on tax, I'm still familiar with GAAP and the reporting requirements. Do I know all the ins and outs of everything? No, but I know enough through my continuing education to be aware of it, and I also know enough when to get a colleague involved who specializes in that. So my work experience has included large international firms, mid-sized regional firms, smaller firms, and I've also spent some time working for just a single owner firm. I've moved across the country a few times following my husband's job from Rhode Island to Phoenix, Arizona for 10 years, and now here in Sarasota for the past 6 years. When we moved to Sarasota, I applied for my CPA reciprocity here in Florida, so I hold licenses actually in both Rhode Island and Florida. The reason why I'm telling you all this is because I want you to be aware that having an accounting degree has really allowed me to move from city to city and, quite honestly, not skip a beat. I've been able to locate great jobs wherever I was in the country and at whatever stage I was in my life. There were years when I was raising our kids that I only worked tax season and then spent the rest of the time parenting. So having an accounting degree has given me a base upon which I've been able to build my career, all while being flexible to my location and our work-life needs. So as you are beginning in your accounting career, I would urge you to experience all the different areas that are available to you. In our firm alone, we have specialty areas and departments like audit and healthcare, international tax, estate and trust, outsourcing, general tax. And within all those departments, there's specialties as well. So today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the specialty that I'm involved, and that's construction, real estate, and development. For most of my career, I would say I was a generalist. I did both individual and corporate taxes without really having a specialty. I worked across a wide range of clients. So why construction? When I came to KB 3 years ago, there was an opening in that department. I had had some previous experience with construction and real estate. It wasn't necessarily my specialty, but it certainly had my interest. I've always been interested in construction. The how was that built process. It's always intrigued me. And I've been around the industry for years, as my husband works for one of the nation's oldest family-owned design and building companies, and he has so for many years. I'm a firm believer that you have to be passionate about what you do, because your clients or your bosses, they sense that. And those people that exhibit that kind of passion and interest, they're really ensuring themselves a successful career. I also believe that in order to be successful, you have to set yourself apart a little bit from everyone else. You have to have a specialty, a niche, an expertise, so that people come to you for assistance in those areas when they're trying to make decisions, implement plans, and ensure that they're doing things properly. So then I had to think to myself, what could I do to set myself apart in the construction tax accounting industry? I decided to pursue my CCIFP certification. That's my Certified Construction Industry Financial Professional. So in order to obtain that certificate, I had to pass an exam that covered 8 bodies of knowledge: accounting and reporting, income recognition methods, budgeting and planning, risk management, taxes, human resources, legal, and informational technology. It was a little bit overwhelming, but something you need to remember is that knowledge is power, and your learning's never going to stop, even when you're out of school. While a lot of tax accountants remain generalists, a lot go on to pursue additional certifications. You could be a certified financial planner. You could be a certified fraud examiner. These different certifications, they set you apart a bit. There's new ones that come up every day. There's certifications in particular software systems. So you just need to be aware of what's around you and how to set yourself apart. So what does the CCIFP do for me? It helps me be more recognized in the community. It's the only industry recognized certification for construction. And it gives me such a background and a base that I can actually help businesses from their foundation forward and help them grow their businesses. People rely on you. If you're a public tax accountant, they're going to rely on you to do their compliance, but they also want some value added services and how to grow their businesses. And how it can set you apart is what you do with that. So in this industry, this certification helps me. It allows clients to see that I know more than just taxes. I know the whole ins and outs, so to speak, of construction accounting. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I do on a day-to-day basis. But before I did that, I wanted to spend some time talking about what makes construction accounting different than regular accounting. We all know debits and credits, but construction accounting is a little bit different. So accounting is one of the most important aspects of management and administration in business. In firms, there's several moving parts. An accounting team has to accurately track all the movement of the assets in and out of the company, and it's a complete necessity in any business. But it's important to understand that construction accounting is a little bit different. Construction companies monitor their categories of cost in a different way because they include travel time, mobilization costs, such as packing tools and equipment, delivery of material to job sites, and even cleaning the job sites of excess material once the jobs are done. Being able to track, report, and categorize these costs and expenses in the construction business is important for understanding on how you can bid on projects. You learn what projects are profitable for your business. You learn how to bill your clients accurately and fairly, and you learn how to use the most of the firm's resources. So construction accounting is a form of project accounting in which costs are assigned to specific contracts. Keep in mind, some of these costs are indirect. They're supervision, equipment rentals, support costs, insurance. So whether we're talking about billing, production, or labor, contractors operate their business around projects. Their financial focus is around each and every job. That's why contractors use job costing. A lot of decisions are based on these job costing schedules. They go hand in hand with the financials, but they represent the activity on a job-by-job basis, which allows owners to see where they stand, if they're on budget, under budget, and how they can fix things. So job costing and the GL work together kind of like a left hand and a right hand. The GL looks across the company as a whole, and job costing looks at the project level. So the general ledger is made up of accounts that you're familiar with: material expense, AP, things like that. Job costing is made up of individual projects and cost activities like foundation and framework, electrical, concrete, steel work, labor, materials. So, like any other area of accounting, whatever you choose to specialize in, there are things that are specific to that industry. Construction is a little bit unique in a sense because there's different revenue recognition methods. And we have other things in construction like retainage, costs in excess of billings, and billings in excess of earnings. These are terms that you don't hear in other industries. Now, Keep in mind, I'm a tax accountant. I'm not an auditor. So the information that I'm most familiar with is what's acceptable to the IRS. It's not necessarily what's acceptable in a GAAP financial statement. So remember, that's where I'm coming from. Today, I wanted to expose you to a couple of things that are different from the tax perspective. So you may have heard completed contract method. This is a method that contractors use, and the income and expenses are not reported until the project is finished. It doesn't mean that you're not incurring expenses, and it doesn't mean that you're not billing, but you're not reporting anything from a tax perspective until the project is complete. Everything hits the income statement at one time. This kind of allows contractors to defer taxable revenue till the next year if the contract won't be complete. But like anything else, the IRS has very strict stipulations on who can use completed contract method. Most of the home construction contracts in residential buildings, you'll see that those contractors use completed contract method because their contracts are not typically more than 2 years long. To remember about the percentage of completion method. In order to use this method, you have to be assured that you're actually going to collect the money, and you also have to be able to reasonably estimate the costs that you've already incurred and the stage in which the project is completed. So there's a lot of different guidelines and specifics and hurdles that you have to overcome to do either of those methods. I just wanted to bring them out there so you'd at least be familiar with the terms. So a lot of clients, generally most clients, put their books on the percentage of completion method because that's the information that they use on a day-to-day basis. They want to know how much of the project is completed, how much have they spent, how much have they billed, what's left. That gives them a true day-to-day picture of their books. But a lot of times, some of these contractors file their tax returns based on the completed contract method. So you as their advisor need to know the difference and how to convert one to the other. So that's some of the things that I would do as their advisor. Another thing that's kind of peculiar a little bit to the construction industry is retainage. So they have a retainage which you would hold back. A common amount is 5 to 10% of a contract value. And the idea is that this retainage provides the customer, the ultimate owner of the property, some security against deficiencies and defects on the project. Some other things you'd be calculating would be costs in excess of billings, deferred revenue, billings in excess of costs. That's a contract liability. So again, there's differences than regular accounting, and as you progress, if this is the career you'll choose, you'll learn that things. So just kind of a quick recap. If you have a long-term contract, which is contracts that typically last over a year, you've got choices. You can either do it on the completed contract method, which means you're going to recognize your income and expenses when the entire job is complete. Or you're going to use the percentage of completion method, and you're going to recognize your income and expenses over time. Now, again, that's a very broad generalization. There's lots of rules and things that you have to do. So obviously, as you get involved, or if you get involved in this, you'd figure those things out. I just wanted to give you a highlight of the differences. And know that there's differences in every industry. There'll be terminology and things in healthcare that wouldn't necessarily be in general tax. There'll be differences in estate and trust accounting. So whatever you get involved in, there's going to be differences from general accounting, so to speak. So let's talk a little bit about what I do as a tax manager in the construction area on a day-to-day basis. So a typical day consists of, well, really, is there ever a typical day? Things change every day, so there really is no typical day. And that, I think, is why I love it so much. I mean, we all have the emails, the phone calls, the meetings, things like that. I will say that 80% of my work revolves around compliance. Now, don't just think like a tax return, like a partnership or an S corporation or a C corp. There's a lot of other compliance filings that businesses need to do. There's city and state filings. There's sales tax filings. There's property tax reports. There is a slew of payroll tax filings. There's international tax filings. There's some compliance that clients have to keep their loan covenants up to date. There's also filing for construction companies that buy heavy vehicles that go on the roads. So there's always some kind of compliance work to keep you busy. Now, if you're an auditor, maybe you work on auditing books. If you're in the private world, you're going to spend your day updating and maintaining the general ledgers of companies. I can only kind of give you what I do. So some of the other things that I do, the other 20% of my time, I spend on things like business planning, transaction planning. I talk with my clients about how they should structure deals. And if they structure a deal in a certain way, what's their tax situation? What's the tax ramifications? I help my developer clients determine whether they're on budget, over budget, if they should pay a contractor, was the work completed? I can talk about with some clients, we talk about how they can change their revenue methods, how they can work to increase their revenue. I advise clients on long-term planning, retirement issues, succession planning. We let clients know if they're available for new credits. Right now, in the land of COVID-19, we're working with a lot of clients on PPP loans and forgiveness applications. A client may call and say, hey, I need a couple things for a new loan or a lease. I make sure they get what they need. And part of my time is also spent every day in making sure that I am as up to date as I possibly can be on the current legislation and the changes that are occurring on a day-to-day basis. I'm blessed that I work for KB because we have a huge network of resources and information available, but wherever you work, whatever you choose to do, always make sure that as a professional, you're spending those extra minutes, extra time learning and staying as current as you possibly can. Now, there's a lot of different kind of construction companies, but I wanted to kind of categorize them. You've all heard of a construction manager. A construction manager is typically a company that only supervises the work. They don't do any of the work or labor themselves. They manage the project. All the work is done by trade contractors. And then you have general contractors, very similar to a construction manager in that they manage projects, but those general contractors, also known as GCs, they have the ability to self-perform some of the trade work. They might be able to pour concrete. They might be able to erect steel. They can do some of the manual labor. And then you have your trades or your subcontractors. They're the guys that actually put the work into place. Now, keep in mind all these subs like concrete, plumbing, electrician, steel, they all have their own accounting staffs because they have to submit the invoices to the construction manager or the GC to get paid. So you may decide, no, I don't want to go public in construction. I want to go to a private industry in construction. There are so many places you can go. There's lots of different industries. There's residential construction, there's commercial construction, there's institutional construction. That kind of construction would include like government and school work. There's civil construction, that's excavating, hardscape like sidewalks and paths, and utility work, things, underground work. There's hospital construction, there's pharmaceutical constructions. Those are both highly specialized areas. So if you decided you didn't want to be a public tax accountant who specialized in construction, there's so many places in the private industry that you can work as an accountant and over time progress as far as you want it to be. I want to tell you a little bit about the things that you could do if you decided to go into a private industry and become a construction accountant, maybe a construction manager at that level. So you would be potentially responsible to gather information for cost certificates, including lien waivers, invoices. You might be responsible for maintaining and updating the general ledger. You might generate cost and budget reports to help the owners better manage the projects. You might be called upon to manage loan draws and schedules. You could work with project managers and construction administrators to review the costs and codes for payments. You might be the person that's in charge of tabulating the bids for clerical accuracy. You might be part of grant-related projects. You might have to assist with job reports, review contract schedules, maintain WIP schedules, contract certification. So you can tell, this list goes on and on. There's so many different things that you could do. So in kind of recapping, what advice would I give you? You can see there's so many different opportunities available. I only touched on construction. I would highly recommend and encourage you to expose yourself to as many different areas of accounting before you commit yourself to a particular focus. Once you do that, learn all you can about that area and find out what you need to do to differentiate yourself from everyone else. Make sure you always continue to grow and learn and be the best you can be at whatever you choose to be. I'm rooting for you.